Rio, good morning. We'll just take 2 more minutes and then begin. A few more of you are still to join. Rio. We'll begin with few Shanti mantras because that's how every scripture is studied. That is how everything that is discussed with regard to God or the self, what is known as Atman, is spoken about in the Indian spiritual tradition. So please close your eyes and simply listen to the sound of my voice. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Gajananam Bhutganadisevitam Kapitthajambu Phalacharu Bhakshanam Umaswatam Shoka Vinashakarakam Namami Vigneshwar Padapankajam. या कुंदेन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्र वस्त्रावृता या वीणा वरदंड मंडित करा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शंकर प्रभृति देवैः सदा पूजिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती निःशेष जाड्यापहा. अपने आप ले लो का छोटे का स्वर. All right. So good morning everyone and thanks for joining on a Saturday morning. Bhakti Demystified is the name of the course, and we are here to discuss what exactly Bhakti means, because there are a lot of interpretations of Bhakti, and because Bhakti is considered to be very generic and very generous in terms of being a spiritual path, everyone has their own ideas and their own sensibility regarding Bhakti. So before I begin, I'd ask all of you to give me 1 or 2 liners about what you think Bhakti is and what, according to you, Bhakti is. And then we'll take it from there. You can simply type your answers in the chat box so that I'll know where we are working with, what we are working with. Anything that you know, there are no wrong answers regarding this, because Bhakti is a very deeply personal approach to reality, to the absolute truth or God. Anything. What do you think Bhakti is?
I think Bhakti is to connect with the divine power, with the Almighty.
Correct. Anyone else?
Um, Bhakti is surrender to God.
Right, and that is the purpose of bhakti. That's also correct. Bhakti means complete surrender. Yes. So the general sense or the general idea about it is pretty much uh, almost there. Now, technically speaking, the Sanskrit term bhakti comes from the root bhaj, which means to attach. And that attachment leads to fascination. That fascination leads to an intense liking, and that intense liking then transforms into love. And when then love transforms itself into something higher than what we think love is, and then it transcends into the category of complete and absolute surrender. So that is what bhakti is. I'll give you a very small example. You say, generally people say that I love my parents, I love my kids, I love my friends, I love my partner, so on and so forth. So this is the kind of love that we are familiar with. So bhakti is something like that. In bhakti, now all that love that you have for everything and everyone in the world is totally focused onto a particular form, a particular uh, pinpointed idea of God. Now, this could be someone from the known forms of God, which are given to us through the scriptures, through the ancient saints and sages, or this could be something of your own concoction. You could have also created an idea, given it a name and a form in your mind, and for you, that would be God. So when all your attention, all your focus, all the intensity of your emotion is aligned and attached to that idea, that name, that form, that is known as the beginning of bhakti, the beginning of true attachment. Now, as someone of from you said that bhakti is a way to connect to God or to know God. Well, yes, that is true, but bhakti is not the only way to connect to God. Bhakti is just one of the paths to connect to God. The other paths, quite famously, are the Jnana Marg or the path of knowledge, in which you depend on intellectual inquiry. You're using the intellectual capacity of your own mind to understand what reality is. You're questioning reality, you're trying to arrive at the truth because you're tired of the relative truths. Everyone thinks that there is their own version of truth and that is valid and true from their perspective. So there is a sense of relativity, and those relative truths often clash with each other. So when you deeply want to understand and to seek something which does not come into conflict with anything else, that absolute truth, that absolute reality through your intellect, that is known as Jnana Marg or the Jnana Yoga. Yoga means union. You're trying to become one with what? Union with God or union with the absolute truth. So the other path is the path of intellectual inquiry. In the intellectual inquiry, you use the scriptures, the suggestions of the saints and sages who've already gone through this path. Now, you can do it on your own, but it is prescribed that you take the help of those who have reached there before you. Because generally, what happens is uh, we often go to experts in their respective fields when we have something to do or some help to be derived from that field. For example, if you have to seek medical attention, you go to a doctor and you check the credentials, right? You are very particular about, you ask for reviews, you ask for some people that you already know that are associated with the doctor. So you want to gain that confidence. Similarly, if you want to eat something out of the ordinary, something that you do not cook at your home, you go to a good restaurant, you approach a good chef, and so on and so forth. But what happens with spirituality is generally most people, they think it is very easy, so I'll do it on my own. They start reading the scriptures on their own. And that is what creates a concoction of opinions. And none of those opinions come anywhere close to the reality. That is why, in the Indian tradition, especially, those secrets, which are not exactly secrets, but the codifications of the perception of reality, the codifications of how to approach God, what exactly is the easiest path, what is the direct path, they are all codified into verses, so that there is no opinion based differences. Everything is tested, everything is argumented, and if the experience of the saints and sages do not match, then that motive, or then that principle is not included in the scripture. So the scripture is more well researched, well studied than any other scientific survey that we blindly believe nowadays. But because of the education system and the rampant disbelief, and somehow there is we look down upon people who are believers by nature, who are not skeptical. So because of that, which this environment which has become rampant everywhere in the world, we somehow think that yes, scripture is something lesser as compared to any other form of knowledge or any other form of codification of knowledge that is available to us. So you will blindly take any medicine prescribed by a doctor just because that doctor has 2 or 3 degrees, right? Because you think that the survey that the scientists conducted, that was good. So you have proof, although the survey was on a limited sample size. Of course, the survey was on animals and then on humans, but you still have faith in that doctor, right? So that faith is the same everywhere. The same faith, when you apply it to God or to the absolute reality, that faith begins your journey of bhakti. Now, there are other paths to approach God or to the absolute reality. There is Hatha Yoga. You begin with the asanas, you discipline your life, you control your senses, you control your hunger, your thirst, and all those things. And finally, you attain a state where you're able to commune with the divine. You're able to commune with the absolute. And that state is known as yoga or samadhi. Now, what is different regarding bhakti is that your total dependence in bhakti is gradually but definitely shifted towards or shifted on to God. In all other paths, the dependency on your own self, on your own body, your mind, stays for a very long time. For example, in Jnana Marga, or the path of intellectual inquiry or path of knowledge, the dependency is on your intellect. So you have to have a firm, very sharp, and a totally detached, unbiased intellect. If you do not have a totally detached and unbiased intellect, you will fail very easily in the path of intellectual inquiry. And we see it everywhere nowadays. It is a quite ubiquitous phenomenon. Why? Because we know the so-called intellectuals, we know the so-called scientists, and they admit that there is a human error involved. So that is why the path of knowledge or Jnana Marg is considered to be the most difficult path, because here the dependence is on your own intellect, and your intellect is a part of your mind. And if your mind is not in your control, you cannot trust your intelligence or your intellect. Okay? Similarly, in Karma Yoga is simply performing your actions for the greater good, not thinking as an individual, as a limited entity. You're thinking in global terms. Okay? You're thinking in cosmic terms, in fact. And then you're not expecting the immediate reward of your action. You're not expecting a reward. You're doing it because you've understood that yes, there is something which connects us all, and if I'm benefiting someone, that benefit will definitely come to me in some amount. So you are not thinking that you're apart from everything. You think that you belong to this one cosmic whole, and that is why you're working for the betterment of the conditions wherever you are. Without expectations, you're working selflessly. This is the path of selfless service. Now here, the dependence is on whatever you are serving, or in whatever capacity you are serving. If you're serving through your intelligence, then there is a dependency on your intelligence. And you have to maintain the purity, the quality, the discipline of your intelligence. If you're serving through your body, like you're helping someone through your physical strength, so the dependency is on your body. The body has to be sound, safe, healthy and capable of helping the other. Otherwise, there's no point of just thinking that you want to help others. You should be able to help others. So there is a dependence on the body. Now in bhakti, you're not dependent on the mind as well as on the body. You're totally becoming dependent on God, because you've understood that there is something beyond my perception, there is something beyond my capabilities that is running the entire drama of this universe. So your dependency is immediately shifted on to God. Now, as this dependency becomes higher and higher, and one day it totally becomes dependent on God, then that is considered as absolute surrender. Before that, it is only the initial stages of bhakti or initial stages of attachment. Like you've met someone and you've liked them. You're still testing waters. Okay? So you're totally dependent on them. There is a courtship. There is a to and fro of energy that goes on. That is the beginning of bhakti. And then it fully blooms into absolute surrender when there is no shred of doubt. There is no intelligence involved. I'm not saying that you become foolish or that you become dumb or stupid in bhakti. No, bhakti is a path of, there is some level of, in fact, a greater level of intelligence involved in bhakti. But that will come to know as we enter the study of the scriptures that we are basing this course on. So in bhakti, you begin with emotions because attachment is on an emotional level. And although technically speaking, emotions are another forms of thoughts. There is nothing in the mind except thought, right? Even a memory is a thought. A feeling is a thought. So technically speaking, everything is a thought. So the emotional thought now is starting to align with God. That is the beginning of bhakti. And there are a lot of misconceptions about bhakti. For example, when people say it is for the simple-minded, they do not understand the complexity of life. They do not understand how science works. They do not understand how rationality works. And that is why they believe there's some old white guy in the sky who is helping them or who will help them. That is a misconception. Of course, that is a poor judgment coming from our education system, coming from the others who have in the past colonized us, to diminish our strength that comes from our cultural and spiritual roots. And ironically, bhakti is an important component of every religion in the world. In fact, bhakti is the biggest component of every religion in the world. Okay? For example, Islam. Islam, the term itself means surrender, total and absolute surrender to God. Okay? So, bhakti is the central aspect or the central practice of all spiritual traditions, of all religions, of all mysteries. Even that's why we say, right, I'm very devoted to my parents. I'm very devoted to my kids. I'm very devoted to my partner, to my wife, to my friends. All these things. All of that finally culminates into a sense of devotion. When do you reach that sense of devotion? When the doubts, the conflicts, all of them have settled down. Then you are able to totally open up. You're naked. You come undone in front of that, who you are devoted to. That is bhakti. Now, in the beginning, you might not have complete trust, but that does not mean that you cannot start. Start with whatever faith you have. Okay? Clarify. Ask someone who understands. Ask someone who has gone through the path. And it is said in the spiritual circles that you can only attain bhakti by the company of bhaktas. It works like through conduction. Okay? There's a mutual transference of the quality or the practice of bhakti. If you come in contact, like your vibe, you become like the company you keep. So is the case with bhakti. When you come in association with devotees, and if it is a true devotee, then the sprout of bhakti will pop up in your heart. It is as automatic as it can be. Yeah, so that is something basic about what bhakti is. Now the scriptures that we're going to study as a part of this course are the Bhakti Sutras. So there are sutras, right? What does sutra mean? Does anyone know what does sutra mean? Anyone? It's a one term, small term. What is a sutra? What is a sutra? Okay. Sutra means a thread. We have the word sooth for cotton, right? So sutra is a thread. Now, what does a sutra mean? The thread which connects various ideas, multiple thoughts regarding one particular philosophy, one particular field of study. That is why we have Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. What does Yoga Sutra of Patanjali contain? They simply contain aphorisms or verses. Like we have shloka in the Bhagavad Gita, we have mantra in the Vedas. So these are the statements of Saint or Sage Patanjali regarding the topic of the philosophy or the school of Hatha Yoga. So he has compiled those, and then as a scripture, it is known as a sutra. They're all connected to each other. And each sutra, in fact, can be opened up and expanded into a book of philosophy. So a lot of information is filled into a single statement. We have a saying in Hindi, "Gagar mein sagar bharna." So you have filled the entire ocean in a simple earthen pot. Such is a sutra. It contains a lot of information condensed into some verses. Like you have cue cards, right? When you're memorizing or revising some, like a subject or an examination you have to appear for, so you have cue cards prepared, you have few words so that you can quickly recollect. So sutras are like cue cards. You need someone who has understood the concept, who has undergone a thorough study of that school of thought, that school of philosophy, that school of spiritual tradition, to expand that sutra for you, because otherwise there will be a very bland and simplistic meaning of the sutra. And that is what happens when people start to read or study on their own. They get a very generic or a superficial, surface level idea of what the philosophy is. Okay, so Bhakti Sutras are simply the sutras which directly talk about the state of a bhakta, how you begin, what are the symptoms, and how you can reach the advanced levels of bhakti and finally become one with God and end this cycle of samsara. Okay, the purpose definitely is uh, communion with God, but it is slightly different in case of bhakti than the other paths. All the other paths you'll see, they talk about, especially in the dharmic traditions. And by dharmic traditions, I mean the religions which sprouted from the heartland of India, like Sanatan Dharma, or what is now known as Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, and Buddhism. These are called dharmic religions. So all of them, their aim is liberation, mukti, moksha, nirvana, right? And the Bhakti Shastras also agree with that. But there is a slight difference. Within the extent of, or you can say when the Bhakti becomes too intense, then even that aim is dropped. You no longer crave for liberation, because you're simply craving for attachment or communion with God. You do not care about liberation from the world, because the world has already disappeared from your mind. You live in the world, you do everything perfectly, very well. There is no disruption in your day-to-day tasks. In fact, you might, if you are truly aligned to the spiritual practice, you might become even more adept in everything that you do. But the world will no longer remain as it used to be for you. You will not be bothered by the worries of the world, because your attention is on God. You know the state of estranged, or let's not say estranged, but lovers who are living in two different cities. Even though they're working, they're cooking, they're eating, they're cleaning, their constant attention, there is one constant stream of thought that is always thinking of that lover who they have to meet. That is the case of a bhakt. So automatically 24/7 your concentration is upon God. And that way everything that is troubling you, that is keeping you down, emotional imbalances, discord with others, they all disappear without you having to nitpick and then remove them. Without you having to deal with each issue. I have this issue, I have that issue. Simply your focus on God, your attention on God, your constant remembrance of God will remove all those disturbances. Such is the power of bhakti. And that is why it is considered to be the simplest method. There are no complicated rituals needed to be a bhakta. Yes, as a part of a worship or an upasana or a ceremony, there are laid down principles and rules of how to arrange an altar, how to prepare the sacrificial fire, how to do the sacrifices. That is why we have the karma kanda, which we know as, right? The ritualistic part of Indian spiritual traditions. But once you become truly attached to God, you automatically transcend all these rituals. You're no longer dependent on that, because the fruit of all these rituals is a constant remembrance of God. And when you start constantly remembering God, then you no longer are in need of those rituals. Those who cannot constantly remember God, they need these periodic and daily rituals. Okay? But again, it is said that even when they can constantly remember God, the true devotees will still do some rituals, because you're trying to associate with God, right? A ritual is like we have daily rituals. You go, like women have kitty parties. You go meet your friends over drinks or whatever. These are your rituals to be in touch, to stay in touch, to catch up. So all those religious rituals are like catching up with God. Okay, so that is something like the basic idea what our bhakti is and what bhakti sutras are. Now we are studying two scriptures here, the Bhakti Sutras of Narada and the Bhakti Sutras of Shandilya. Narada Muni, as we all know, through courtesy TV serials and movies, is considered to be the omnipresent sage. He can move everywhere. He's present everywhere. And whenever there is a serious dedication towards God, whenever there is a serious desire to connect to God, he approaches that person and assists them either subtly or directly. Okay, so such is Narad. The name Narad itself means one who provides bliss, or one who takes the bliss of God and imparts it to those who are seeking to approach God. So it is said that Narad had done everything. He is constantly chanting Narayana, Narayana. He's always in touch with God, and he's moving across universes, through multiple universes in each realm. It does not matter if it is humans or demons. He can freely go everywhere, and everyone welcomes him. Such is his aura, such is his energy, and he helps everyone. Some depictions of media and entertainment depictions show him as being mischievous and afraid, but that is like a too much of a cartoonification of Narad. Narad is not like that. Yes, he might entice some trouble, but that is ultimately revealed to be the plan of God. That is revealed to be the best for everyone. So he had done everything. He was in contact with God. But then there is an aspect in the Vrindavana tradition of spirituality, Indian spirituality. There is the Ras Leela. The Ras Leela is a very secret concept. It's very hard to explain. As we go through the Bhakti Sutras and as you become more well versed the terminology and comfortable with the concepts, maybe we'll touch upon certain aspects of what a rasa is. So simply stating, Narada wanted to enter the Rasa Leela. He wanted to enjoy as the gopis would enjoy with Krishna. Gopis are considered to be the prime example of devotion. There is nothing higher than the love of a gopi. No saint, no sage, no intellectual can reach that state. Gopi is the highest spiritual state. When it comes to bhakti, with complete abandon, surrender, and love. Here, the quality is love. Okay, it's not a fear, it's not a reverence, it's not respect, it is love. You're almost on equal level. You're no longer in awe of God. Yes, you're constantly enamored by God, yet, the thing with lovers is there is still some distance between a mother and a child. Even though there is love, there is still some distance between a father and a child, between a mother and a father, between two friends. But among lovers, the distance becomes narrower and narrower. Such is the condition of gopis. The distance is almost not there. Sometimes they think they are Krishna, and Krishna becomes the gopis. So that is the highest level of love. We'll go through that. First, we'll define what is love, what is worldly love, and what actually love is according to the scriptures. And then we'll reach that state of love, which is known as Mahabhava, the highest state of being, the great bhava. Okay, that is Gopi Bhava. So Narad wanted to explore that because he had been a bhakta, probably one of the greatest bhaktas, and yet he wanted to experience that. So he requested his father, who is Brahma, to give him that knowledge. So Brahma instructed him to take a dip in one of the sarovar that is in the Vrindavan region near Govardhan. Now it is known as Narada Kunda, where he used to take a dip daily. His ashram was there, and he meditated. And once he entered the Ras Leela, and as he came out of the Ras Leela, he composed these Bhakti Sutras. So in that intense state of ecstasy, he composed the Bhakti Sutras to give to people the definite, no-nonsense compendium about the ideas regarding what exactly is devotion. Nothing superfluous is added, and every misconception is gently and carefully removed. So that is what Bhakti Sutra is. They said Prahlad, the son of Hiranyakashyap, he was born near Narada Kunda under the ashram of, where his mother Kayadu was under the protection of Narad. Okay, so that is where he composed Narad Bhakti Sutras. There's only 84 verses, very small, but they contain a lot of potent information, something that can easily transform your life. You can easily transform your approach to God, and easily it can hasten your spiritual journey. Simply stating that. You no longer will be moving here and there, going to 10 different places, asking this person, taking that crystal, that flower, that incense and all. You'll understand what the core of devotion is, and then you will be able to align to that naturally from wherever you stand. Okay. The other scripture that we're going to study is the Shandilya Bhakti Sutras. Now, Shandilya is one of the Vedic sages. Shandilya, I'm sure you know, is one of the Gotras as well, one of the lineages in the Indian tradition. So Shandilya composed 100 verses under his Bhakti Sutras. He also defined them, but in a much more philosophical manner. Narad was in a state of ecstasy. His was a very controlled state. Okay, so in fact, Shandilya is one of those seers or sages from the Vedic era who explicitly talked about devotion in the Vedas. Okay, devotion to the absolute. Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, all these Upanishads and the Rig Veda and the Samaveda, they mention about sage Shandilya. So that's it. That is about the course that we're going to have. Now I would like you to ask me questions, because this is just an introduction to what we're going to have. We'll study the scriptures, and I'll tell you from my experiences, from whatever I have learned in my life, from all the saints and sages that I have come in contact with, what exactly bhakti is, how easy it is, and how you can easily implement in your life. Okay, so that there is no separation, there is no distance between you and God. There is no mediator between you and God. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can ask me about bhakti, what you expect from the course, or what you would like to know. We'll meditate on what we have learned. So there will be meditation sessions in between the course. And then there will be something like a reconciliation of everything that we've learned towards the end of the course. So yeah, any questions? If you're not comfortable speaking up in here, you can just write in the chat box. How can bhakti be obtained? Like I said, the easiest way is to be in close company of bhaktas, of devotees, of other devotees. Find someone who you think is extremely devoted and try to be in touch. It rubs off. One of the easiest ways is that. Other ways is to simply ask God. Okay, we will, and anyway, this is a part of the course, how to ask and how to pray. You can simply ask for bhakti. Once you've understood, once there are no doubts, what you're asking is if you have no doubt regarding the path you're taking. Okay, so you can simply, like you're attached to your family members, your friends, you become attached to God. That's it. That's all that is needed. Now the problem is there are a lot of doubts. There are a lot of ups and downs through that we face in our life, and because of that we do not stay connected permanently with God. That is something we'll learn how to work with or work upon. So bhakti can be attained by close company, what is known as satsanga, by association with devotees. Not with intellectuals. Okay, this is the different game. That is a different area altogether. Some people who think they are intelligent enough to understand the scriptures, they should go to a guru. Under him, they should study the scriptures and then approach reality using their intelligence, their intellect. Okay, for bhakti, yes, it is good to have a guru, but you do not have to be dependent on guru to begin the bhakti. You can begin anywhere, under any condition. You do not even have to enter a temple to be a devotee. Simply sit wherever you are, think of one particular form, one particular name of God that you closely associate with, that you naturally are inclined to, and then start praying. Start talking to them. Bhakti is about establishing a very deep, intimate, personal relationship with God. So if someone is inclined towards Shakti, they can consider her to be their mother, their sister, their daughter, right? So on and so forth. So establish a very close personal connection with God. It's all in the mind. And then you start talking to them, interacting with them, speak with them. Ask them, how can I understand you? And there could be multiple reasons or various causes of someone who's trying to enter the path of bhakti or trying to be more spiritual. So whatever reasons they are, you lay those reasons, all those causes bare in front of God. This is why I'm trying to understand you. This is why I'm approaching you. Most of the people, they go to temples, they do pilgrimages for particular material gains, right? My health condition, someone else's health, my material condition, someone else's material condition, all those things, right? Monetary condition. And I want peace of mind, or I want a partner, for example, right? I want a child. All these are also fine, but these are the beginning stages of it, where your interaction with God is only transactional. Yes, there might be respect or reverence, but it is still only transaction. But as you grow deeper, you will understand, or you will realize that you're no longer asking for anything. And ultimately, when you reach that state of love or divine love, which is seen in the case of the gopis, you won't even ask anything. You won't even ask for liberation. Forget about material benefits. You won't even ask for spiritual benefits. Instead, you will start asking God, how can I make you happy? So from please make me happy to how can I make you happy, this is the whole trajectory you will cover through the path of bhakti. Okay? In jnana, in karma, in all other paths, it stops at mukti. I'm liberated. Of course, you can choose the kind of mukti. Choose in the sense based on your spiritual journey, based on the tradition that you're following. It could be you want to become one with God, absolutely lost with God, The Atman, the self, becomes one with Brahman, the absolute. And then the individuality disappears. Okay, then you no longer remain as an individual. Then there could be this kind of mukti that you want to attain a form and name like God. Then we have the various lokas that they say, right? The Vishnu lok or Vaikuntha. We have Golok, where Radha and Krishna reside, where they have the Mani Dweep, where Shakti resides with all her, extensions. So you can go there and find a form closely like the god or your chosen deity. That is known as Sarupya Mukti. There are various kinds of liberations. When it comes to bhakti, and when you become like a extremely advanced devotee, then you no longer crave for that kind of liberation. You're no longer worried about anything. The only thing that matters is the love between you and God. Okay, but that happens on an advanced level. So bhakti can be easily obtained. The problem is, can you maintain that? Can you go from the secondary level or the lower stages to the highest stages of it? Will it be only be a transactional bhakti? You give me this, I give you that. Like what people do, right? मैं इतने नारियल चढ़ाऊंगा, मेरा ये काम हो जाना चाहिए, right? That is a very basic or very the beginning stages of bhakti. Yes, there is an interaction, there is an association, there is some sort of attachment to God, but it is only related to you give me that, because the God can give you that. But that is the same with everything else, right? You want your other half, your spouse, to make you happy. Otherwise, why would you marry? You want your kids to make you happy. Otherwise, why would you have kids? It's the same transaction there as well. When you transcend that transaction, then your bhakti intensifies. Okay? But it is still better than being attached to worldly, being dependent on world, its contents, and its people. It is still better than that. I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective. And how it is better than that, we'll study as we go through the course. Yeah. Anything else? Any other question? I believe, yes. Can you tell us about yourself, your journey? Will get to know mechanics. Okay, I generally avoid speaking about myself. That is why I think I'm not sure if there was a brochure prepared where there was a brief introduction about my spiritual and physical journey in this world. Right. If I can share the document with you, you'll get the overview of the course, the duration, and everything. Okay, the syllabus as well. My journey began since my very early childhood. Um, uh, it's hard to say if I was inspired by someone, because as far back as my memory serves me, and I recollect correctly, I have been obsessed with God. No one taught me about God. No one taught me about religion. From a very early age, I was in to God, and there was an intense attachment. And of course, there were influences on the way as I grew up. There were many spiritual influences. There were various paths that I considered within spirituality. Like I've gone to the Jnana Marg. For a very long time, I was very strong Advaita Vedantin. Like I believed only in non-duality. And when I was studying Vedanta, I was avoiding all emotional, indulgences with respect to God. Absolute is there, nameless, formless. How can you love something which is nameless, formless? But I wanted to understand that. There was an intellectual curiosity. When that was satisfied, then I move on to everything. I've gone through all religions in the world, because have always inherently felt that there is that spark of truth everywhere, although it might be covered under a lot of cobwebs of opinions and distortions and misquotations and mistranslations. So I've gone through all of them, and then ultimately found the same thing everywhere. A bit distorted, maybe a bit diluted in a lot of places, and that's it. So currently, I like because you probably you didn't get the document. I'm focused on the Rasa Upasana, that is from the Vrindavan tradition, spiritual tradition, where the focus is Radha and Krishna. So my Ishta Devata are Radha Krishna. They're known as Yugala Jodi, or the divine couple. Okay? They signify love, the highest form of love. And from what I have studied before entering into this, is that love is the highest form of intelligence, it is the highest form of knowledge. There's nothing beyond love. Okay. Now, this love is not the kind of love that we are familiar with in our day-to-day lives with the people that we interact and come in contact with on a daily basis. This is something else. Okay. And it cannot be spoken about much. That is why we speak about bhakti, and we prepare people to reach a stage where they can transcend finally that lower stages of bhakti. Okay. Yeah. So that's a brief about me. I've studied all religions. I've studied the Vedas. I have studied the Puranas. I have studied almost every scripture that could shed some light on what is God or what is reality. Yeah, so that's my background. And the overview of the course is we're going to study bhakti. So this is focused on bhakti yoga. It's not focused on any other parts. Yes, I'll give you instances from other parts of spirituality for a comparison or to create a contrast. Okay, so it will be focused on bhakti, and we'll be under the guidance of the scriptures, Bhakti Sutras of Narada and Bhakti Sutras of Shandilya. The Bhakti Sutras of Narad contain 84 verses, and the Bhakti Sutras of Shandilya contain 100 verses. Okay, so there will be 184 verses. We'll take each verse and we'll go into the depth of each of that verse. We'll understand what exactly bhakti is and how the various saints and sages have defined bhakti. So, for example, in the Narad Bhakti Sutras, he gives the definition of bhakti from various sages. Veda Vyasa describes bhakti as this. Shandilya describes the bhakti as this. This person describes bhakti as this. And from all of their perspectives, you will get a better and a deeper understanding of what bhakti is. And on this journey, you will clarify all your spiritual doubts. Okay? Yeah. So yes, I have gone through all traditions of India as well. Like I began with Shaktism. I had an obsession, intense attachment to the divine feminine, Shakti. And then I moved on to Shaivism because I was not satisfied with one. I wanted to approach and worship God in every name and form. And then I also wanted to approach God, or what we know as absolute reality, without any name and form. I wanted to see how that happens. So there was a shift to Vedanta as well, to Christianity, Islam, even the tribal religions of Africa, the shamanism, the shamanic religions of Amazon rainforest, and the Scandinavian regions as well. I've gone there. I've studied with some of those practitioners to understand how all they combine and to reconcile everything within my mind, so that I'll be able to because I struggled a lot during my childhood to find a spiritual mentor, and so that's why I wanted to bridge that gap. If someone is feeling lost, if someone does not know where to go or who to approach, I want to be that mediator. That was my way of doing something that has helped me, and yeah, laying out pointers. What you do is, and after the course, is totally up to you. But yes, and since there is a lot of there are a lot of misconception, there are a lot of mistranslation, there are a lot of deliberate inclusions and deductions from the scriptures. You go on social media and everyone is posting with a photo of God, and there is something written about it which is not in the scriptures, which is not from any saint or sage. Everyone has created their own philosophy, their own religious idea, and then they have associated with God. Krishna says romance is this. Krishna says to treat this, but Krishna never said that. So I was kind of saddened and, in fact, furious about this, what's happening everywhere. Big names. I should not even take those names. They have become like designer gurus, and they are fooling people. I'm not sure if they're totally fooling or not, but the thing is, they are not being true to the essence of spirituality. So that was my motive ultimately, to bring something which is not affected by anything, where there is no ulterior purpose. Everything is transparent. because that was the intention of the scriptures. Because of a long period of wars and trouble and conflict, in inner as well as external conflict, colonization, all those traditions were either resultantly or deliberately decimated, totally destroyed. That is why we are so doubtful about our own heritage. Most of us do not know simple things or simple words that we use on a day-to-day basis. We misuse and abuse the word dharma, but we do not know what is dharma. We do not know about the God that we are praying to, right? And the people that we look up to or the people that we go for answers, they are also fooling us, okay? Or they themselves do not know. So that's why that has been my journey. There's been more, but there's always a time and place to talk about yourself. It should be about the content, right? So we'll discuss that as and when needed during the course duration. Why does my bhakti or love or devotion go up and down? It happens. It's natural because it's still based on the state of your mind, right? So if there are fluctuations in the state of your mind, there will be fluctuations in anything that you, not just bhakti, right? Someday you feel energized to take on the world, to paint the town red, to party till it's the dawn, and some days you just can't get up from the bed. This is the state of mind that is not controlled. So an undisciplined or uncontrolled mind, which is fed by the senses which are working on their own, running rampantly here and there, it is a natural state of that mind. So through dedicated spiritual practice, we come in the control of the mind, we control the senses and then the mind, and then we turn the direction of the mind. Currently the mind is extraverted, right? All your information is from the outside. When slowly through a discipline, a spiritual practice, the mind becomes introverted, then it attains stability. So the mind is colored by attachment. So there's a term called raga. Okay, we've heard of raga. Raga means there's a particular form or a particular structured form of notes and harmonies in the Indian classical music that is known as raga. But ultimately, raga comes from the root rang. So raga means attachment. Now, what is that attachment? This attachment colors your mind. If you are born into a certain family, you're conditioned by a certain education, you're conditioned by a certain kind of upbringing and the company that you have kept in your childhood, when you went to college or school, when you were with colleagues, all that colors your mind. Okay, you become attached to that, and that is why you think this is how the world exists. You're looking through colored glasses. All those conditionings, these are like, they create filters. So the light of truth or knowledge is not coming to you totally. It is coming filtered through those patterns, your prejudices, all those conditionings. They are filtering the light of knowledge to enter you. Through dedicated spiritual practice, you break down all those conditionings. You remove all the drama from your life. Then you become simple, the mind becomes lighter. And when the mind is not conditioned, then it is able to focus. And when you focus, then there won't be any ups and downs. Yes, for a very long time, it might not become 100% stable. But if you keep practicing, you'll see a gradual increase in the stability or the duration to which there is a permanent, or let's say relevantly, comparably longer period of stability in your practice, in your bhakti, or whatever you are doing in your day-to-day lives. It happens to everyone, like you said, right? So it totally depends on the quality and the state of your mind. Why sometimes it is natural to feel the same question, while it's a feeling of disconnection. Basically, it is because your mind is distracted. There's too much going on, and you are attached to everything. So anywhere your senses pull the mind goes there, right? So it takes some practice. That is why it is known as sadhana. You have to perfect the mind. You have to stabilize the mind. And that happens through a deliberate and a regular practice of whatever path you've taken, be it bhakti or, hatha yoga or anything. If you feel naturally drawn to Krishna, or I'm not able to feel Radha's grace as much, it's fine. It's totally fine. You will feel as you grow. Okay, as you grow in bhakti. Like I said, Radha, she represents.
You are not audible.
No sound.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you are audible now.
Okay. So where did you lose me? Can anyone tell me? I think we were taking the question from Kohli ji. And she said that she feels naturally drawn and connected to Krishna. However she tries, she is not able to feel Radha Rani's grace. And like I said, Radha represents the highest state of love. So it can take some time to feel a connection with Radha. This is a very specific, a very personal question that you've asked. So maybe I'll answer it offline. Maybe you can connect with me later, and you'll understand why it's not happening, and I'll tell you how to approach that and how to remedy that. Okay. So if you're feeling connection to Krishna, it means it is because of Radha's grace only, ultimately. Without Radha's grace, you won't be feeling any connection to Krishna. Now, you're not able to feel her grace as herself because she is testing you for that. That's all I can say. How serious you are about Krishna. Okay? Because Radha, the relation between Radha and Krishna is something like that. If you remember the instance from Bhagavatam, where even Lord Shiva had to transform into a feminine form. He became a Gopishwara. He took the form of a gopi to enter the Ras Leela. Okay, so it takes some time to find that connect. There could be various reasons. There could be intellectual doubts. There could be various things. Okay, so we will take this separately because this is a very personal question. But don't be worried. If you're feeling a connection with Krishna, it means that yes, Radha has already blessed you.
Thank you.
All right. So I think we're done for today. I hope I've made myself clear regarding what the intention behind the course is. And those of you who have already not joined the course officially, if you think this could be beneficial for you, please let me know. The details and the brochure will be provided to you. Okay. All right then. We'll close this with the Shanti Mantra, and I hope to see you soon. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru Namaha. Thank you everyone and have a good day. Namaste.
Thank you.